The first time Ranger started barking at the old well behind the Holloway property, nobody thought much about it. Dogs barked at strange things all the time in Blackwater Ridge, especially at night, especially in late November, when the mountains outside the tiny Colorado town disappeared beneath heavy fog and pine. Shadows stretched across the frozen ground like long black fingers. But this was different, because Ranger had not barked once in the 3 days since Daniel Holloway died. Not during the funeral. Not while strangers filled the house with casseroles and fake sympathy. Not when 12-year-old Emma cried herself to sleep every night, clutching her father's old flannel jacket. The German Shepherd had become silent after Daniel's death, almost hollow, like some part of him had died too. Until midnight on the fourth night. That was when the barking started. Deep, violent, relentless. Emma sat upright in bed the moment she heard it. Her mother, Claire Holloway, rushed from her room downstairs thinking someone was outside. But Ranger wasn't barking toward the road. He stood near the back property line, paws dug into the frozen dirt beside the abandoned well, snarling into the darkness like he wanted to tear something apart. The dog's fur stood up along his spine. His teeth were bared, and when Claire called his name, Ranger turned toward her with something she had never seen in his eyes before. Fear. Not animal fear. Warning. Then he looked back toward the trees and kept barking. That was the first moment Claire Holloway realized something about her husband's. Death did not make sense, because Ranger had been there the night Daniel died. And dogs remembered things people missed. Blackwater Ridge sat deep in the Rockies, 3 hours west of Denver, hidden between endless forests and narrow mountain roads. The kind of town where everyone knew each other's secrets before breakfast. Daniel Holloway had grown up there. So had Sheriff Nolan Briggs. They'd played football together in high school, worked cattle during summers, drank beer beside bonfires after graduation. People trusted Nolan because he understood mountain towns. And people trusted Daniel because he fixed nearly everything in them. Daniel ran a small repair garage near the edge of town. Trucks, tractors, snowmobiles. If it had an engine, Daniel could bring it back to life. He was the kind of man who remembered birthdays without reminders, the kind who carried extra gloves in winter, because he always found someone who needed them more. The kind of father who never missed Emma's school concerts, even after 12-hour workdays, which was why his death made no sense. Sheriff Briggs called it an accident. 3 days earlier, Daniel's truck had been found at the bottom of Miller's Ravine after a snowstorm. According to the sheriff, Daniel must have lost control on black ice while driving home from work. The truck rolled 40 feet down the embankment. Daniel died instantly. Case closed. That's what everyone said, but Ranger had never believed it. The dog had refused to leave Daniel's side at the crash scene. Deputies practically dragged him away. And now, every single night, Ranger returned to the well behind the property, barking, growling, digging at the frozen earth until his paws bled. Claire tried to ignore it the first few days. Grief did strange things to animals. That's what the vet told her. But Emma noticed something else. Ranger only acted that way after certain people visited the house, especially after Sheriff Briggs came by. The first time Emma noticed it, Briggs arrived with paperwork for the insurance claim. He sat at the kitchen table drinking coffee while Claire stared blankly at forms she couldn't process. Ranger stayed in the hallway watching him, not moving, not blinking. Then Briggs reached for Emma's shoulder, and Ranger growled. Low, sharp, dangerous. The entire kitchen froze. That dog's never liked me much, Briggs joked awkwardly. But Emma knew that wasn't true. Ranger loved almost everyone, especially cops. Daniel had rescued Ranger 6 years earlier after the dog retired from a K9 search and rescue unit in Utah. The shepherd had spent years locating missing hikers and avalanche victims before an injury ended his service career. Daniel used to say Ranger understood humans better than humans understood each other. Now the dog stared at Sheriff Briggs like he recognized something nobody else could see. That night, Emma whispered something to her mother while Ranger lay beside her bed. "I think Ranger knows Dad didn't crash." Claire closed her eyes. "Sweetheart, I'm serious." Claire wanted to dismiss it, wanted to tell her daughter grief was making her imagine things. But deep down, the same thought had already started growing inside her. Because Daniel hated Miller's Ravine Road during storms, he avoided it whenever possible. And Daniel never drove carelessly. Never. Then Claire remembered something else. The night Daniel died, he had called her around 8:40 p.m. from the garage. He sounded nervous, distracted. He told her he was heading home soon. Then he said something strange. "If anything ever happens, check the cabin keys." At the time, Claire barely registered it. She assumed he meant the old hunting cabin outside town. But before she could ask questions, Daniel suddenly lowered his voice. Then he whispered, "I'll explain when I get home." Those were the last words he ever said. Claire hadn't thought about it again until Ranger started barking at the well. Now she couldn't stop thinking about it. The next morning, while Emma was at school, Claire searched through Daniel's things in the garage office. She found the cabin keys inside an old metal toolbox. Nothing unusual at first glance, until she noticed fresh scratches near the key ring, as if someone had pried something loose. Claire turned the keys over carefully. Then she spotted it, a tiny silver USB drive taped beneath the leather tag. Her stomach dropped. Daniel had hidden it there intentionally. Hands shaking, Claire plugged the drive into Daniel's old laptop. Only one file appeared, a video. The footage came from the garage security camera. Time-stamped 2 nights before Daniel died. Claire pressed play. Daniel stood inside the garage arguing with someone off camera. The audio crackled badly, but one sentence came through clearly. "You said nobody would get hurt." Then another voice answered, "Sheriff Nolan Briggs. You should have stayed out of it, Danny." Claire stopped breathing. The video suddenly cut out. No explanation, no ending, just silence. Ranger began barking outside the house again, violently. Claire rushed to the window. The dog stood near the tree line now, facing the woods, growling at something hidden between the pines. Then a truck engine echoed somewhere beyond the forest, and for one horrifying second, Claire saw headlights moving through the trees behind her property, watching the house before disappearing. That night, Claire locked every door in the house. She didn't tell Emma about the video, not yet. Instead, she called Daniel's younger brother, Travis Holloway, who lived outside Casper, Wyoming. Travis arrived the next afternoon wearing an old denim jacket and exhaustion in his eyes. He hugged Claire silently, then crouched beside Ranger. The shepherd immediately pressed against him. But when Claire showed Travis the video, all color drained from his face. "You need to go to state police," he whispered. Claire stared at him. "You know something." Travis looked away, and that was when Claire realized her brother-in-law had been hiding fear since the moment he arrived. Finally, he spoke. "Danny called me 2 weeks ago." Claire felt cold. "He said he found something at Briggs Construction. Sheriff Briggs' cousin owned the largest construction company in Blackwater Ridge. They handled road repairs, logging routes, and state contracts throughout the county." "What kind of something?" Travis swallowed hard. "He thought they were dumping chemicals illegally near the reservoir." Claire frowned. "What?" "Danny found dead fish in the creek behind the old quarry. Said the water smelled wrong. The town reservoir supplied water to 3 surrounding communities. If contamination got exposed, Briggs Construction could lose millions. He took photos." Travis continued quietly. "Plan to report it." Claire suddenly understood. The argument in the garage, the fear in Daniel's voice, the hidden USB drive. "Oh my God," Travis nodded grimly. Danny thought somebody was following him. At that exact moment, Ranger leaped to his feet. The dog sprinted toward the back door, snarling furiously. Then came the sound, crunching footsteps outside. Someone was near the house. Travis grabbed the fireplace poker while Claire called 911. But before anyone reached the door, Ranger exploded through the dog flap and vanished into the darkness. A man screamed outside. Then tires spun violently on gravel. By the time Travis reached the yard, only Ranger remained, standing near the road, growling, A black ski mask lay in the snow beside him. The sheriff arrived 20 minutes later. Nolan Briggs examined the mask with a calm expression that felt strangely rehearsed. Probably kids messing around. Claire watched Ranger carefully. The dog stood between Briggs and Emma the entire time. Protective. Rigid. Then Briggs noticed the dog staring at him, and for the first time since Daniel's death, the sheriff looked genuinely uncomfortable. "You should keep him restrained," Briggs muttered. Ranger growled again, low and threatening. Briggs quickly left afterward. That night, Travis made a decision. "We're going to the cabin." Claire frowned. "What cabin?" "Danny's hunting cabin near Elk Pass. The one he barely used?" Travis nodded. "He hid things there sometimes." Snow fell heavily as they drove through mountain roads before dawn. Ranger sat alert in the back seat the entire trip. The cabin stood deep in the forest beside a frozen creek, isolated miles from the nearest road. Inside, dust covered most surfaces, but Ranger immediately began sniffing through the small living room. Then he stopped beside the fireplace, scratching furiously at the wooden floorboards. Emma knelt beside him. "What is it, boy?" The dog barked sharply. Travis grabbed a crowbar from the shed outside. 10 minutes later, they pulled up 2 floorboards beneath the fireplace. Claire's breath caught. Inside the hidden compartment sat a waterproof case and a revolver, along with dozens of printed documents, chemical reports, financial records, photos of rusted barrels dumped near waterways, and names. Dozens of names, including Sheriff Nolan Briggs, Briggs Construction, county officials, environmental inspectors. The entire thing was bigger than Claire imagined. Daniel had uncovered a massive, illegal dumping operation tied directly to local authorities, and then he died. Emma looked at her mother with tears forming. "They killed Dad." Nobody answered, because the truth sat in front of them now, cold and undeniable. But Ranger wasn't finished. The dog suddenly ran toward the cabin door, barking wildly. Then he bolted outside into the snow. "Ranger!" Emma shouted. The shepherd disappeared into the trees. Travis cursed and grabbed a flashlight. They followed the barking deep into the forest until they reached the frozen creek behind the cabin. That was where Ranger stopped, beside a half-buried metal barrel hidden beneath snowdrifts. The barrel leaked dark sludge into the ice, and painted across the side was the Briggs Construction logo. Claire covered her mouth. The dog had led them directly to evidence. Real evidence. But then headlights appeared through the trees. Coming fast. Travis shoved Emma behind him. A pickup truck burst onto the clearing. 2 men jumped out. One carried a shotgun. "Get away from that barrel," he shouted. Ranger lunged instantly. The German shepherd slammed into the armed man before he could aim. The shotgun fired into the air. Chaos exploded across the clearing. Travis tackled the second man while Claire dragged Emma toward the cabin. Ranger snarled savagely, pinning the gunman into the snow. Then another truck engine roared nearby. Sheriff Briggs stepped into the clearing holding a pistol. Everything stopped. Even the snowfall seemed to freeze. Briggs looked exhausted now, cornered. "You should have left this alone," he said quietly. Claire stared at him in disbelief. "You murdered Daniel." Briggs said nothing, which felt worse than denial. Emma began crying behind her mother. "You were Uncle Danny's friend." Something flickered across Briggs's face then. Regret. Pain. But it vanished quickly. "He found things he wasn't supposed to find." Claire shook with rage. "So you killed him?" "It wasn't supposed to happen like that." Ranger growled louder. Briggs aimed the pistol toward the dog, and Emma screamed, "No!" Before Briggs could fire, red and blue lights suddenly flooded the forest. State police vehicles surrounded the clearing from every direction. Travis had secretly contacted Colorado investigators. Hours earlier, after seeing the video, officers rushed forward with weapons drawn. Briggs lowered his gun slowly. Defeated. But even then, Ranger refused to stop growling, as if the dog needed everyone to understand the danger had always been real. The investigation that followed shattered Blackwater Ridge. State authorities uncovered years of illegal chemical dumping throughout the county. Briggs Construction had buried toxic waste in forests, creeks, and abandoned mining sites to avoid disposal costs. Sheriff Briggs helped cover it up. So did several local officials. Daniel Holloway discovered the operation accidentally while repairing construction. equipment near the quarry. At first, Briggs tried bribing him, then threatening him, but Daniel refused to stay quiet. On the night he died, Briggs confronted him on Miller's Ravine Road during the storm. According to one of the arrested workers, Briggs forced Daniel's truck off the road after a violent chase through the mountains. Then they staged the crash as an accident. The entire town fell apart after the truth emerged. People lost jobs. Officials resigned. Neighbors stopped trusting each other. And through all of it, Ranger stayed beside the Holloway family like a silent guardian. But something inside the dog had changed. Claire noticed it first. Ranger no longer barked at night. He no longer patrolled the property endlessly. The rage that consumed him after Daniel's death seemed gone. Almost like he understood his job was finished. Yet one mystery still remained. Why had Ranger barked at the old well that first night? State investigators searched the area twice and found nothing. Still, the dog returned there constantly, waiting, watching. Emma became obsessed with figuring it out. 3 weeks after Briggs's arrest, she followed Ranger to the well alone after school. Snow melted slowly beneath early December sunlight. Ranger sat beside the crumbling stones quietly this time. Not angry, almost sad. Emma knelt beside him. Then she noticed something hidden behind dead brush near the base of the well. A leather glove, her father's glove. Emma froze. The glove was torn badly across the knuckles and stained dark brown. She ran back to the house with it. Forensics later confirmed the stains were blood. Daniel's blood. But that wasn't the shocking part. Inside the glove, investigators found something else. A silver sheriff's badge pin, bent during a struggle. The evidence proved Daniel fought Briggs before his death, likely near the Holloway property before the chase ever began, which meant Daniel almost escaped, and Ranger had remembered exactly where it happened. The dog had been trying to show them from the very beginning. When Claire heard that, she broke down crying harder than she had since the funeral. Because suddenly she understood what Ranger had carried alone. The dog witnessed Daniel's final moments, witnessed the violence, the fear, the betrayal. And after failing to save him, Ranger spent days desperately trying to tell the family the truth. No words, no language, only loyalty, only instinct, only love. The story spread far beyond Blackwater Ridge after the trial began. News outlets called Ranger the dog who solved a murder. But the people who truly knew the story understood something deeper. Ranger hadn't solved the case because he was trained, or intelligent, or heroic. He solved it because he loved Daniel Holloway, and love notices what others ignore. During the trial, Sheriff Briggs finally testified. The courtroom sat silent as he described the night Daniel died. Briggs admitted they argued near the Holloway property first. Daniel threatened to expose everything publicly the next morning. He said people would die if the dumping continued, Briggs whispered from the witness stand. Claire sat holding Emma's hand tightly. Then the dog attacked me. The courtroom stirred. Briggs continued shakily. That shepherd knew something was wrong immediately. He wouldn't stop barking. According to Briggs, Ranger repeatedly tried blocking Daniel from leaving that night. The dog sensed danger before anyone else did. But Daniel eventually drove away anyway, hoping to calm the situation. Briggs followed him. The storm worsened. The chase began, and moments later, Daniel's truck plunged into Miller's Ravine. When Briggs finished testifying, he looked directly at Claire. "I never meant to kill him." Claire's voice came cold and steady. "But you did." Briggs received life in prison without parole. Several others received federal charges tied to the dumping operation. The reservoir cleanup lasted years, but eventually Blackwater Ridge slowly began healing. At least as much as towns like that ever could. Winter passed into spring. The snow melted from the Rockies. Pine forests turned green again. And for the first time since Daniel's death, the Holloway house felt alive. Not whole, never whole, but alive. Emma started laughing again sometimes. Claire reopened Daniel's garage with Travis helping part-time. They kept Daniel's old coffee mug exactly where he left it. And every morning, Ranger lay beside the office door watching customers come and go, still protecting the family, still waiting for Daniel in ways nobody could explain. One evening near sunset, Claire found Emma sitting beside Ranger on the porch. The shepherd rested, his head against the girl's lap, while wind moved softly through the trees. "Do you think Dad knows Ranger saved us?" Emma asked quietly. Claire sat beside her daughter. "I think your dad knew long before we did." Emma looked down at the dog. "He never gave up." "No," Claire whispered. "He didn't." Ranger lifted his head slowly then. His muzzle had more gray now, his movement slower. The months of stress and age were finally catching up to him. The retired K9 who carried the weight of a murder inside. His memory looked tired, but peaceful. That summer, the town held a memorial near the creek outside Blackwater Ridge. Not only for Daniel, but for everyone harmed by the corruption that poisoned the community for years. People gathered beneath clear mountain skies, while children played near the water again for the first time in years. Sheriff departments from neighboring counties attended too. One officer presented Ranger with a service medal, honoring his role in uncovering the truth. The old German shepherd sat calmly beside Emma during the ceremony, as if he didn't understand the applause, as if none of it mattered. Then Claire stepped forward holding Daniel's photograph. Her voice trembled slightly. Daniel believed truth mattered even when it cost something. The crowd stood silent. "And this dog?" Claire looked toward Ranger, tears forming. "This dog refused to let us bury that truth." Many people cried openly after that, even hardened deputies, even reporters, because everyone understood something simple and painful at the same time. Sometimes the purest witness is the one who cannot speak. Months later, near the beginning of autumn, Ranger stopped eating. The vet said his heart was failing. Emma cried all the way home from the clinic. That night, she slept beside him on the living room floor. Claire woke near dawn and found the two of them wrapped together beneath an old blanket. Ranger lifted his head weakly when Claire entered. Then slowly, painfully, he walked toward the front door. Emma followed immediately. "Where's he going?" But Claire already knew. "The old well." Ranger moved carefully across the yard beneath cold starlight. Each step looked harder than the last. Finally, he reached the well and lay down beside it. The same place where he first tried telling them the truth. The same place where Daniel fought for his life. Emma knelt beside him, crying softly. "You can rest now," she whispered. Ranger looked toward the forest one final time, then toward the house, toward his family, and slowly rested his head against Emma's arm. The mountain wind moved through the pines. Somewhere far away, a coyote howled. And beneath the stars over Blackwater Ridge, the dog who carried a dead man's truth finally closed his eyes, peacefully, like he had been waiting for justice before allowing himself to let go. The town buried Ranger beside Daniel on a hillside overlooking the valley. People came from neighboring counties to attend. Search and rescue officers, state investigators, families who never even met the dog. Sheriff Nolan Briggs' conviction had already become national news by then, but the grave markers people left beside, Ranger's memorial said, more than headlines ever could. Good boy, hero, faithful friend, truth finder. Emma visited the graves every Sunday morning after that, sometimes alone, sometimes with Claire. She would sit between them talking softly about school, life, and memories Daniel never got to see. And every single time the mountain wind moved through the trees above the hillside, Emma felt the same strange comfort, like neither of them had truly left. Years later, long after Blackwater Ridge faded from national attention, people in town still told the story during harsh winters, about the family dog who barked at the truth when nobody else would listen, about the loyal shepherd who refused to let a murder stay, buried beneath snow and silence. But the people closest to the story remembered something even more important. Not the corruption, not the trial, not the headlines. They remembered a grieving dog standing alone in the freezing dark beside an old well, begging the humans he loved to understand. And in the end, they finally did.